guys, today I'm filming a first impression and follow-up on the L'Oreal Infallible Total Cover Foundation. This is not a new foundation. It's actually been out for quite some time now, and I have heard pretty polarizing opinions on this foundation. Either people really like this or think it is absolute garbage, so I wanted to try this for myself. My friend Jean did send this to me, which was really kind of her. Because L'Oreal is a drugstore brand, it is available at Ulta, Walmart, Target, CVS, Walgreens, Rite Aid, all the drugstores, and the price varies depending on which store that you go to. From Ulta, this foundation retails for $12.99. There are 12 different shades in this foundation range, which isn't bad, but they could definitely do a little bit better. I think like 12 covers most of the basics, but a lot of people probably are going to have to buy 2 different shades to mix them to get their perfect shade. I have the shade number 302 Creamy Natural, which is the second shade in the range. I'm already assuming this is going to be too dark for you because it is the second shade. We will see though. Even though the shades are in the 300s, it doesn't mean that it's going to be darker. So basically the L'Oreal Infallible Pro Matte Foundation, all of those shades are in the 100 range. The Pro Glow is in the 200 range, and the Total Cover is in the 300 range. So just so you know that is why the numbering is not going to be the same in all of those foundations, but basically just look at the last number or the last 2 numbers to help figure out which shade might be the best for you. So I'm going to read you the claims from the Ulta website. It says, get up to 24 hours of full coverage with a lightweight feel and a natural finish. This foundation blends instantly to cover dark spots, blemishes, scars, and hyperpigmentation for a flawless complexion. The foundation is formulated with high-load pigments for full coverage and is enriched with Alia gel. The formula glides on and feels fresh all day. It will create the perfect canvas for flawless makeup application. So it says it is supposed to last up to 24 hours, be full coverage, a lightweight feel, and a natural finish. We will definitely see about that. So as with all of my first impression and follow-up videos, I will be applying the foundation on this side with the Real Techniques Miracle Complexion Sponge, and on this side with my Beauty Junkies Flat Top Kabuki. And just go ahead and shake it up since it is in a squeeze tube. And so as with all of the L'Oreal Infallible foundations, they all come in a squeeze tube. So here's what the product looks like. This is a very thick consistency. We'll see if this is able to feel lightweight on the skin like it claims to be, but it definitely isn't dripping anywhere. So I am, yeah, too dark, but that's okay. I am just going to dot this on to my skin. And I really like the Data Squeeze tube because you can really easily control how much product comes out. Okay, so now we have it dotted all on this side of my face, going in with my sponge to blend this out. Sponge is blending pretty well. Look at that. That is great coverage down here. Let's see right on this middle part of my cheek where I have all that redness and freckles. I can still see it coming through a bit, but this is looking pretty good so far. So here's one layer with a sponge versus no foundation. Definitely evened out my skin tone overall. It did give some really nice coverage. I'd say right now we are probably on the verge of medium. I can still see some of my redness, but mostly my freckles. I don't mind my freckles coming through. I really just want to cover up my redness. I am actually pretty impressed by how easily it blended out with a sponge. Usually thicker foundations, I feel like I need a brush for those, but this blended out nicely. So now that I have it dotted on this side of my face, taking my Beauty Junkies brush, I am just going to press this into my skin. So here is one layer with a sponge versus one layer with a brush. I feel like the coverage is about the same. I think it looks like there might be a little more coverage on this side, but I think it's probably because I applied a little more product on this side. But both ways are looking pretty good. So now I'm going to go in with a second layer. So here's 2 layers with a sponge versus 1 layer with a brush. So here's 2 layers with a sponge versus 2 layers with the brush, I do still feel like the coverage is about the same. I would say this foundation is buildable because it did cover up more of the redness on my cheeks. I can still see some of my redness, I can still see my freckles, but I don't want to add any more makeup. This is totally fine with me. So I would say right now we are between a medium and full coverage, which I think is absolutely fantastic. So as you can see, the shade does not match me. It is definitely too dark and too pink, but it isn't terrible. I can definitely get away with it for today and for the follow-up. And then after that, I will probably be mixing this with my Hard Candy Porcelain to get a better shade match. So I am going to be applying under eye concealer and setting my face with the RCMA No Color Powder, which will not give me any color, coverage, or mattify me. It will just make sure to set my makeup. This does dry down a little bit, but it does still feel a little bit tacky, so I want to make sure my face is completely set. It is 10 a.m. and I will be back in 4 hours to check in with you. Hey guys, it is 2 p.m. and I'm back for my first check-in. I have had this foundation on for 4 hours and we're actually looking really good. I do not think this foundation has oxidized at all. It looks the same as when I applied it. So I am starting to get oily on my nose and on this inner part of my cheek and also on my forehead as well. As it's been 4 hours, that is actually pretty typical of me to get oily at this point, so that is not something I'm bothered by. Also, this foundation did not really settle into my pores or my forehead wrinkles, which I think is fantastic. So far, I actually am really liking this foundation. It does not feel too heavy on my skin, but I don't know if I consider it lightweight. I'd say that I can feel it most right here on my nose where I am the oiliest is where I'm really able to feel the product. On the rest of my face, I don't really notice anything is there, but also keep in mind I am used to wearing full coverage foundations on the daily, so foundations don't usually feel heavy to me, and I am way more impressed with this foundation than I thought I'd be. I thought I was going to hate this. I'm also really happy with the color. It isn't as dark or as orange as I was thinking it was going to be, so at this point I am feeling very happy with this. We will see how it looks in another 4 hours. Hey guys, I am back for my second check-in. It is 6 p.m. so I've had this foundation on for 8 hours. It still has not oxidized at all, which is fantastic, but I'm sure you guys can see that I am incredibly oily. My forehead is so shiny, as is the sides of my nose and the inner part of my cheek and even on my chin, and a little bit on my upper lip area, which doesn't usually get greasy. So I'm looking really oily, but it hasn't broken up the foundation yet, which I think is good. But even though I am oily, it has not broken down my foundation yet, which is great news. But I am going to go ahead and blot with one piece of toilet paper. Okay, so I definitely think that helped a lot, and there is a little bit of transfer on the tissue, but not too bad. I think I look pretty good. I would prefer to go in with my translucent powder to really help to mattify my skin, but I'll have to wait and do that tomorrow. Hey guys, today I am back for the follow-up portion of my review on the L'Oreal Infallible Total Cover Foundation. So today I will be putting this foundation into my everyday routine so I can get a more accurate picture of how this is actually going to work for me. So I'll be starting off with primers. I am going to use the Lorac Perfection Mattifying Face Primer as my mattifying primer and apply it all over. And then I'll be using the Makeup Forever Step 1 Smoothing Primer to fill in my pores, and I will just be applying this in my large pores, on the inner part of my cheek, on my nose, and also in my forehead wrinkles. So just taking a bit of the Lorac, rubbing it between my fingers, and I'm going to apply this all over my skin. Next, taking the Makeup Forever Smoothing Primer, I just like to take it between my 2 fingers, press it into my large pores, and then smooth over my skin towards the outside of my face. So yesterday I applied this foundation with a sponge and a brush, and while they gave about the same coverage, I did prefer the sponge application better, so that is what I'll be using today. I am going to use the Real Technique Smear Complexion Sponge. So here is one layer applied all over with the sponge. I would say right now I have about light medium, closer to medium coverage. So here's 2 layers applied with the sponge. I would say right now we are between medium and full, leaning closer to full. It did cover up most of my redness. You can still see my freckles, which I definitely don't mind. I like for my freckles to show, but to cover up my redness. I do still love applying it with a sponge because I think it gives it the best finish, but because the consistency of that foundation is so thick, you really do have to work the sponge into your skin. And if this is a foundation you're using on a daily basis, I would recommend washing your sponge every time or every other time, because that just seems to help, but you definitely need to really work it in. I think it would be really easy to walk out of the room with some foundation splotches still, but I do prefer the sponge over the brush. So I'm going to apply my under eye concealer and setting powder off camera and be right back. So now that I have my under eye concealer on and my under eye set, as you can see, it definitely is looking a lot lighter, but I'm going to go in and set my face using the Maybelline Fit Me Matte and Poreless Powder and 100 Translucent, which is not actually translucent. It's very fair with a yellow undertone, and I'm going to be applying that with the Real Techniques powder brush. I love using this brush with my face powder as opposed to a more dense brush, so it's not packing on too much extra coverage and making my face look cakey. It is just perfectly setting my face. And then I'm just applying this powder all over. And this foundation, like I said yesterday, is a little bit too dark for me, so I think this powder will help lighten it to match my skin a little bit more. It's still going to be a little bit too pink, but it will make it look a little bit better. So right now it is 11 a.m. I will check in with you guys about halfway throughout the day to give you my final thoughts on this foundation. Hey guys, I am back to give you my final thoughts on this foundation. It is 4 p.m. so I've had this foundation on for 5 hours now. I did just blot before this video. I was extremely oily throughout my entire T-zone, forehead, sides of my nose, inner part of my cheek, and also my chin. So I blotted with a piece of toilet paper and then touched up with a little bit of the Rimmel Stay Matte powder, which is my favorite mattifying touch-up powder. And now I think my skin looks pretty good. So to give you my final thoughts on this foundation, I think this foundation is good. I don't think it is great. It certainly isn't gonna be my holy grail foundation, even from the drugstore. But I do have to say that this definitely does give medium buildable to full coverage. It does have a nice satin finish. It does last really well throughout the day. I do wish that this kept me matte for longer. Now if I try mixing this in my hard candy Turn Me Matte drops, maybe that would help it last longer. I'll certainly have to give that a try. And I think the reason that I was pretty excited about this foundation is because I had extremely low expectations for this, because there have been so many mixed opinions. I thought there is no way that this is going to work for me, but it did. I really love the coverage, but the consistency is a little bit too thick for me, and you really do have to take your time blending it in with the sponge. There is some resistance there, which I don't love. So because this is too dark and too pink and the texture is a bit too thick, I will try mixing this with my Hard Candy Glamflage Mix and Pigment drops to see if that can thin the consistency a little bit so it's easier to work with. Overall, I do like this, but I'm not obsessed with it. But I am more impressed than I thought I would be. But this is something that I cannot recommend to everybody, because there have been so many completely different experiences with this foundation. This is a foundation I will keep, and I do plan on trying to use it up. So please let me know your all's experience if you guys have tried out this foundation, and let me know what skin type you have in the comments down below. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye guys.